help you remove that fear, that kick out that fear. So those are definitely some key ones I would say, but mindset with fear is so important, is so important. So getting your mindset on your side and making sure that you're creating a narrative and you're creating dialogue with yourself that is conducive for opening yourself up.
Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to be talking about how to kick the fear out of public speaking, and today's special guest to help us kick this fear is Annelise McCarthy. Hi Annelise. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this.
And so for those who do not know Annelise has attained many years of public speaking training, over 14 years to be exact. And for the last 5 years, she has been doing public speaking coaching. And so she is more than qualified today to teach us how we can kick the fear out of public speaking.
I'm so ready for this. I'm so excited. I love the title as well. It's just like, get rid of it. It's amazing.
Yep. So Annelise, let's start. So what exactly is public speaking? Does this mean that it's only when I'm on a stage and speaking to 100 different persons?
Yeah, it's definitely what a lot of people would think that it is. And I think that's probably why there's a huge stigma around it. So, if I ask you to visualize, close your eyes and visualize public speaking, what that means to you, a lot of people would think standing up in front of a lectern with 100 to 500 people in front of you and this cold, shaking glass of water and like all these eyes on you, right? Mm-hmm. But realistically, that's not public speaking, because public speaking is something that we do every single day, whether it be ordering a coffee at a cafe or calling a friend or showing up on a Zoom or going on an Instagram story, whatever it might be. That is all forms. Those are all forms of public speaking in one way or another. So you don't have to be on a stage with a microphone to be public speaking.
That's interesting, and a lot of people may disagree with you and say, well, no, I thought I have to be on a stage, and oh no, but talking to my friends or presenting something, I don't think that's public speaking.
And that's so fair, because traditionally you think of big institutions like Toastmasters, they are all about getting up on stage, holding palm cards, holding a microphone, and learning how to speak on stage in front of an audience. So the concept and the definition of public speaking has all been forged around this idea of being up in front of an audience, a large audience. But when we bring that back to day, it's not as applicable. So 100%, I know for a fact there are going to be people that disagree with my definition. Mm-hmm. But with the work that I do and the women that I serve, in order to make public speaking something that is non-intimidating, that is inclusive, that you feel like you can actually tackle and accomplish, we start at the foundations, and that is, did you call your mum today? Guess what? Did you prepare that conversation before you had that phone call? Did you write down what you were going? No? Interesting. It's public speaking. So that whole idea of, well, if you haven't prepared what you're going to say and you're speaking off the cuff, kind of like we are now, this is public speaking. This is what it is. And that's the definition that I want to normalize. And I think we need to discuss way more so that people don't feel as intimidated by the concept of public speaking.
So being the fact that we identified what the definition of public speaking is and the fact that we do it every day, do you think it's important, or, what's the level of importance when it comes to public speaking?
Oh my goodness, so important, because you think of how do we connect with other people? Mm-hmm. We communicate with them, right? We resonate with people's stories. We resonate with how they speak. We resonate with their authenticity, with their credibility. And the fact is, people relate to people. Mm-hmm. So if you are able to communicate and connect with other people and speak eloquently or speak, passionately, whatever it might be, you have a far greater chance of building a stronger relationship with other people and allowing yourself to make of a more memorable impact with that person. And for anybody's watching who might be looking, for job interviews that are coming up or looking to get in the workplace, many studies have shown that the number one skill that employers are looking for is communication skills, public speaking. And then from there, it goes into leadership skills and teamwork skills, all of which, by the way, you cannot possess and you cannot master if you cannot communicate. So it's a huge 360 that carries into not only the jobs that we do, but also how we communicate with our loved ones, how we communicate with our friends, how we carry on conversations, how we communicate to ourselves, you know, internal dialogue and self-dialogue, which is something that we'll talk about, I think, quite a bit today. So it's relevant in all aspects of life, 100%.
Right. Now, the fact that it is so important, according to a poll that I did for my listeners and my viewers, they said that the results show that majority of them fear public speaking. Now, if this is something that plays a 360 role in our life, why does so many persons fear public speaking?
Yeah, so many. In fact, 73% of the population fear public speaking, and it's the greatest phobia. So glossophobia, the fear of public speaking, is greater than the fear of death. So there's a very famous saying, which is that people would rather be in the coffin at a funeral than stand up and give the eulogy. So that gives you an understanding of how we feel about public speaking. And I believe the reason that we have such a fear is because we have this huge association around judgment with public speaking, right? We have this fear of standing up and performing and people judging what we're going to say or giving us criticism. And it's incredibly vulnerable to stand up and talk in front of other people. It takes a lot of courage. So for a lot of people, taking that step is incredibly intimidating and is really nerve-wracking. And one thing I would say is, you know, Nia, you think back to, for you, the first experience you ever had public speaking, right? Let's go the traditional concept, like standing up in front of people and speaking. Was it in school?
I don't think so, no.
No? When would that have been for you?
It would have been at a family event. One day I just got randomly picked on to make a speech.
Talk about the birthday girl, yeah, right? And these are situations that can happen, talking at celebrations, talking at events. And one of the key things that I remember one of the people that follow me, one of the women that follow me brought to my attention, and it's so true, is that for so many people, the first experience that we have of public speaking is often when we're in English class and then we're graded on how we speak. So we have marking allocations associated to how we speak. So there's that huge fear of failing and of coming below the line, below the standard, below the expectation, which for a lot of people is incredibly fearful. You know, it's incredibly intimidating. And so I think it couples between how we're actually raised to participate in public speaking and what our belief is of what that actually is. And then on top of that, the circumstances and the experiences that we have, which we might feel incredibly, you know, nervous about or judged for or really intimidated. I know family events for me when I was younger were the worst. I hated with a passion speaking at family events because your grandpa's looking at you and he's expecting you to give some like beautiful speech, and then your auntie's giving you the side eye of like, don't you mess this up. So it's really intimidating in front of your family members as well. And often it's said that it's easier to present and perform in front of people you don't know than in front of people you do know. So I think that has a lot to do with why we fear public speaking so much, because number one, we have the stigma around what public speaking actually is and the misinterpretation of it, but also our early experiences with public speaking. And for me, with my story, I grew up with a lisp. I had a really bad lisp growing up as a kid. So for me, when I spoke in public and I spoke in classrooms, I was severely bullied by the people in my class about how I spoke. So I grew such a negative association with my voice and a fear of speaking, fearful that people would make fun of me. So from a very early age, I hated public speaking. And this is something that a lot of people get really shocked of because they think that I was born this miraculous public speaker with all of this confidence. Absolutely not. It was a really long, difficult journey for me to get to where I am today, you know? So I tell people that the very first public speaking experience I had of performing on a proper stage, I fainted. So it was like 10 seconds in, I think I would have been maybe 8 or 9 years old, about 10 seconds in. And as we're going to get into today, I saw all the eyes and I was out. I was out cold on stage. So it's, yeah, it's definitely something that a lot of people would experience and feel and would resonate with. And I think the main thing to remind them of is that it is okay. You're not alone. You're one of the 73%, and you shouldn't feel bad that you're one of the 73%. Because society has not conditioned us to fall in love with public speaking as a skill. So it's not really your fault.
Yes. So being the fact that we have identified that it's important and we understand that there's 73% of the population who fears public speaking, how about we get into the meat of the matter, which is how does one kick this fear out of public speaking?
Yeah, so true. And such a wonderful question, Nia. Now, the first thing I would say to kick the fear out, so if you're someone that's fearful of the uncertain or the unknown, and you're going into a situation that you know you're going into, so it might be a class presentation, it might be a Zoom, it might be going live on Instagram, or it might be delivering a presentation, prepare for it. And you're allowed to do that. So remove the unknown, remove the uncertainty, and prepare yourself. And the reason I say this as a segue is because I have a sheet here with notes on it. Now, I'm a public speaking coach, and I could easily talk about this stuff off the cuff, but I know for me, with my train of thought, having dot points here really helps me. And if that helps you, that's okay. You don't expect yourself and don't put all the pressure on yourself to do it wonderfully without any help or support. I would take my absolute hat, jacket, and shoes off if you could. Like, it's amazing, right? But for the majority of us, we crave comfort and we crave certainty when we're in uncertain situations. And one way to give yourself that and to remove the fear to an extent is to actually prepare yourself for the situation. Make yourself feel comfortable. So like we are now, Nia, I just explained to you before, I have water with me. I have tea. I have notes. I'm in a comfortable chair. I'm in a comfortable outfit. And this makes me feel comfortable in this situation, right? So that's probably the first thing, is finding comfort in discomfort. And another thing, looking to my notes, because that's okay, is when we are, getting into public speaking and we're just starting out with the idea of learning how to communicate effectively and growing confidence in our voice, one thing I would say that's huge to remove the fear is remove the expectation. So a lot of the time we can place such high expectations on ourselves. We can compare our day one to someone's 5th year of public speaking. Right? So we're just starting out, we're just finding confidence in our voice, yet we're comparing ourselves to someone who's been in the game for a really long time. That kind of compare and despair syndrome. And that's no effective way to start. Sorry, my love?
Comparison is a thief of joy.
Exactly right, Nia. Yeah, exactly right. So when we do that, we're automatically putting ourselves on the back foot, because we automatically start to think, I don't have enough experience to do this. I'm going to fail. Look at them, they're doing so well. And look at me, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm going to stuff up. I'm going to speak too quickly. I'm going to speak too slow. I'm going to fumble. It all comes out, and then it traps us and blocks us from actually stepping out of our comfort zone. So don't set your expectations too high, and understand that starting at baby steps is okay. And like we spoke about before, the stigma of public speaking with being on a stage, that shouldn't be your first step. That shouldn't be your day one. And if you're already establishing that I'm only going to be a confident speaker if I can perform in front of 500 people in a month, you got to kind of realize that expectations like that are slightly unrealistic. A lot of women that work with me to get rid of things like fillers, right? So so filler sounds, filler words. And one thing I always say to them is, you haven't developed this filler overnight. This has been years and years and years and years of habit. So we have to be realistic with ourselves and understand that, we can't expect ourselves to get rid of it overnight. Like with anything, if we're training for a marathon, which I currently am, and I'm seriously regretting because my calf seized this morning and it was the most painful thing of my life. But anyway, if you're training for a marathon, you can't expect to run 21 or 40 Ks in a week. You can't expect to sign up to a race the week before and run the whole race. So why is it that if we want to learn how to perfect a recipe, if we want to learn how to master a new skill, learn a musical instrument, we understand that takes time. But when it comes to things like communicating and public speaking, we expect to master it overnight. We don't allow ourselves to sink in with the reality of lowering our standards and having realistic expectations. And that's why we become fearful. Because when we do try and we're not perfect at it, we psych ourselves out and the fear steps in. I shouldn't have done that. I stuffed up. That wasn't good. I didn't speak well. And the ripple effect starts to go. So I would say keep your expectations realistic. And that way you're going to try and limit the fear that you have for public speaking, looking back at my notes. one thing I would say for fear, which is huge for what I do with the women that I work with, is get your mindset on your side. Get your mindset on your side. So I always talk about what narrative are you writing for yourself. So we're going to dive into this very quickly. And basically, I want you to think about what is your internal dialogue with your voice. So I mentioned before, it might be, I hear so many women who message me and they say, I'm not a good public speaker, I need your help. And the first thing I ask is, who told you you weren't a good public speaker? Who told you that? Did a public speaking expert tell you that? Because that's a bit mean, but like, who told you that? Like, no, nobody told me, but I know I'm not good at public speaking. Huh, interesting. So you told yourself you're not good at it. And often if you tell yourself you're not good at bike riding, or if you're not good at cooking, you're going to avoid doing it because you avoid the feeling of failure, of not succeeding, of putting yourself out of your comfort zone. So if your internal dialogue is telling yourself, I'm not a good public speaker, I don't like the sound of my voice, I'm intimidated by my audience, I can't hold conversations or have good small talk. If you're constantly writing this narrative for yourself every single day, no wonder we fear public speaking. No wonder, because the brain is such a powerful thing. And we're writing this negative narrative for ourselves that allows us to stay in our comfort zone and not stretch ourselves and not grow and not move into the discomfort zone. Because in reality, the discomfort zone is the scary part. It's uncomfortable. And for a lot of people, taking that first step, whether it be, having small talk or hosting a Zoom or ordering a coffee, for some people, that's a huge first step for communicating. And that's in your discomfort zone. But what I would recommend is when you're trying to kick the fear out of public speaking, is seek out those opportunities to grow. Yeah. So I've just mentioned before how I grew up with a lisp, and a memory that will always stay with me, which at the time I hated, but now I realize it was, for my betterment, was the speech pathologist that I was sent to. And I want you to imagine in school, you have those, 45, 50-year-old, 60-year-old women formidably dressed with the ruler in hand, like no nonsense kind of teachers. That was my speech pathologist. And as an 8-year-old walking into her office, sitting on a really large sofa in the middle, feeling incredibly small, I'm thinking, I don't want to be here right now, right? And I remember the first thing she said to me was, right, Annelise, are you really serious about getting rid of your lisp? Do you really want to get rid of it? And I'm thinking, yeah, I do. She's like, right, so what we're going to do is we're going to enter you in every public speaking competition this year, every poetry recital, we're going to get you in plays, we're going to get you in musicals, and we're going to get you performing in front of camera.
What?
As an 8-year-old, I'm thinking, all right, man. It was terrifying to me. The thought of being, and that's the extreme, right? That's quite a traditional method of really just throwing yourself in the deep end. And it's not what I teach, but the merit behind that is still there. You're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone into your discomfort zone. And you're giving yourself an opportunity to grow and to learn. And becoming realistic with the fact that, okay, so the very first competition I fainted, not that good, right? Didn't go so well. However, I then learnt for the next one that, well, I probably wasn't hydrated enough. And I psyched myself out majorly before I got on stage, which probably would have affected it as well. So for the next time I performed, I made sure I was hydrated and that I was around my dad before I performed, who pepped me up and gave me this massive hype talk of, you're amazing and you can do this and you know your poem and you know your lines. I'm like, yeah, I do, Dad, I do, right? So you're surrounding yourself with people that pep you up and make you feel good, that help you remove that fear, that kick out that fear. So those are definitely some key ones I would say, but mindset with fear is so important, is so important. So getting your mindset on your side and making sure that you're creating a narrative and you're creating dialogue with yourself that is conducive for opening yourself up to opportunities for public speaking, not shutting them down.
Right. So Annelise, you mentioned those tips, but then you also mentioned that we have to seek out different opportunities to practice public speaking. Now, how do we take those tips and apply them now in the world of public speaking, but to practice first? So what are the best ways to practice public speaking?
Such a good question. And I'm so glad we're getting onto this because we're about to talk about my favorite thing. And I think, Nia, it might be one of yours as well. And that is honestly a phenomenal app, which is Clubhouse. And so for those of you who don't know, Clubhouse is an app which hosts real-time conversations with industry experts. And even if it's not an industry expert, it can be anybody across the globe. And you're basically joining a live audio chat and you can have any discussions about anything. And it's an amazing opportunity not only to network and to meet new people, but also to work on your speaking skills, because there's no camera. So you don't have that intimidating element of having to know where to look or how to dress or be presentable on top of speaking, because to someone that's new to communicating, that can be incredibly intimidating. But where Clubhouse is great is it's like being on a phone call. It's like talking on the phone. It's really casual. So for people wanting to start to slowly push themselves out of their comfort zone and experiment with, do I feel comfortable asking a question? How do I feel responding to a question that's asked of me? And imagine doing that 3 times a week and then making it 4 times a week and then making it 20 minutes a day, you know, and then soon you'll get addicted like Nia and I are, and you won't ever get off the app, right? So Clubhouse is a huge one. And yeah, you've had a similar experience with you on Clubhouse, haven't you? Because we hosted an amazing room 2 weeks ago on Clubhouse. And I think it really showed how we had 400 people in the room. And it showed the power of how there's a lot of people that were new to the app that were coming up on stage that were asking questions. And there's a lot of safe spaces that are conducive to encouraging those people to speak and to talk and to get comfortable talking on the platform. So Clubhouse would definitely be a good. I don't know if you wanted to add anything about Clubhouse, because I know you're an avid fan as well.
I'm not even going to start because I could go on and on. But what I want to ask you, Annelise, is for those who don't use Clubhouse, are there any other ways that they can practice?
Yeah, definitely. So many ways. So a huge one is using your phone. So most of us will have a phone, and you either use audio or video. And it's a really simple way to start. So you can one thing that I did, at the end of every day, I would drive home from work. Before I got out of the car, I would put my phone up on my steering wheel, face it towards me, and press record. And I would just talk to my phone about my day. Now, when I was a young teenager and I was just getting comfortable with public speaking, obviously I didn't have a car because I couldn't drive. However, the same method applies of I would get comfortable talking in front of camera, and I would get comfortable listening to the sound of my own voice and watching myself back by speaking on topics that weren't intimidating to me. Talking about my day, talking about how I made my lunch that morning, talking about the coffee that I had, whatever it might be. So talking to camera and learning how to actually carry on a conversation with yourself, maintain that fluency, maintain that flow. And then the great thing about recording is that you can listen back to it. And now I know for a lot of people listening, you're probably thinking, oh gosh, no, I hate the sound of my own voice.
Of their voice.
I hate watching myself back, and oh, it's terrible. And that's okay. I was there too. And how I got out of that was I slowly started to fall in love with my voice, with realizing it's the only one I've got. This is it. This is me. And you either take it or you leave it, you know, and that's a confidence that you get with experience, and the more that you grow and the more you put yourself out there. But as we mentioned before with mindset, you have to be your first biggest supporter. And if you hate the sound of your own voice, and if you hate yourself on camera, how can you expect other people in a Zoom to love it? How can you expect other people on an Instagram Live to appreciate it if you don't? So video recording is a really powerful tool. Same thing if you don't have Clubhouse and you want a similar experience, audio recording, so voice memos, doing the exact same thing, talking about your day, talking about any type of topic, just with voice note. And then listening back and, oh, did I say a lot of ums and ahs there? I had a mental blank there. Why did I have a mental blank? What topic came up that I felt, you know, constricted about, or I lost my train of thought? And it's when you start to identify these patterns in your speech that you then start to learn how to combat them. You know, it's becoming conscious of the subconscious. So those are 2 other tips. And then the final one, which is for a lot of people, they're like, oh, it's so cliche and oh, I hate this, but it's talking to the mirror. And for many people, for everybody listening right now, if you have a mirror where you are, I want you to go and stand in front of your mirror as you're listening. And I want you to take note of, how do you actually feel seeing yourself in front of the mirror and having a conversation with yourself in front of the mirror? Are you uncomfortable with it? Do you feel uncomfortable looking at yourself in the eyes and telling yourself things like, I'm learning to be a confident communicator? my relationship with my voice is growing. I am slowly falling in love with my voice. Sentences like these that I teach my clients to say every single day that slowly bridge that gap and help you fall in love with your voice, right? And if you're doing something like we are today, an interview, sit down and talk to yourself in the mirror and answer the questions. And it's a really great way to feel comfortable in your own space, comfortable with your own presence and your own voice, and to get experience talking out loud, listening to yourself talking, because that's a huge thing. Often we don't listen to ourselves when we talk. So those would be my main ones if you're doing at home. But then obviously, if an opportunity arises, like doing an interview on Zoom, or like putting up a story on Instagram, or hosting a live, or joining an audio chat, or whatever it might be, don't shut down those opportunities. I implore you, I encourage you, take a baby step and join them. Because guess what? Day 1 is going to turn into day 24 really soon. And then day 24 is going to turn into day 76. And then before you know it, that Zoom call that you had at the beginning of the year with your colleagues is suddenly going to be so much easier in August because you've done it 1,000 times already.
True.
So it's normalizing the conversation for yourself, turning the discomfort zone into a comfort zone, and slowly learning to fall in love and appreciate the sound of your own voice. I think those would be my main tips.
Thank you for those tips, Annelise.
You're welcome.
So as I had mentioned previously, Annelise, I did a poll and the results showed that majority of persons fear public speaking. Now, I also got some feedback from the listeners and the viewers about why do they fear public speaking and how do they feel. So I'm going to read the first one, and that person said, I am shy and I cannot form coherent sentences in front of a crowd. What kind of advice do you have for that person?
The first thing is I empathize. I was a really shy kid with my lisp. I found it really difficult to speak to groups of people, particularly older people, so people that were older than me, teachers, parents, people in the older generation. I felt really intimidated to speak to them. So the first thing I would say is try and put yourselves in situations where you're surrounded by people that will support your speaking journey. So I know with me, I always avoided the cliques at school that I knew that would make fun of my lisp, right? So for me, there was absolutely no point with me with the speaking training that I was doing, putting myself in situations which I knew would change my mindset and would put me down and would make me feel bad. So I think the first thing I would say is if you're struggling to form coherent sentences around people and you have that anxiety and you have that shyness, try and first actively seek out groups of people who will support you when you speak, who will listen to you, who will encourage you, and be open about this journey that you're having of trying to improve your communication skills. One big thing with a lot of people as they grow up is the conversations we have around the dinner table. So for people or young women that grow up with siblings, as a younger sibling, often you're spoken over. So you go to speak and someone interrupts you. And you don't realize as a kid, but as an adult and as you grow into your adult years, those experiences can be really damaging for you because it stops you actually saying what you want to say. And you start to get used to being spoken over. And you start to tell yourself like, oh, people don't want to listen to what I have to say. So you can't actually allow yourself to form those coherent sentences and to actually speak out because you're with a group of people that won't allow you to do that. So vocalizing first and foremost that I've recognized, okay, I might be shy, but I'm also trying to work on my voice, and I'm going to communicate that with groups of people who I know will support me on that journey and encourage me. Second thing is shy. Once again, have other people told you that, or is this something you've told yourself? Is this a comfortable box that you've put yourself in saying I'm shy and that's a great excuse for me to not communicate? Because in a way that's a comfort zone, saying, I'm shy and I'm not going to be a good public speaker and I'm not very good at communicating. That's a fantastic excuse not to communicate. So I ask you to challenge that a little bit and to question, am I calling myself shy as an excuse to not speak to other people? Or am I genuinely shy because of experiences I might have had that have inhibited the way that I speak? And if so, get yourself a speaking coach and you can work on these things with them, right? Now, with the coherent sentences, my gosh, the fumbling around, I swear, is one of the most difficult things with speaking, right? Actually forming a sentence that sounds logical, not fumbling around your words, not saying not saying not taking really long pauses, not having those mind blanks. How do you navigate that? So the first thing is you have to allow yourself the time of day to think before you speak. And that's a lot to do with pause. And unfortunately, for some reason, we have this weird stigma with pause. When people pause, we feel the need to rescue them, or that they've, forgotten what they're going to say, or that they've had a mental blank, right? But we need to start normalizing pause and realize it is completely okay for me to take a break when I speak and to think about my next sentence. It is completely okay if someone asks me a question for me to take a second to think about it before I respond. And if you're not comfortable doing that just yet, a really quick way to actually think before you speak while still speaking is that if someone asks you a question, just repeat the question back to them. So if someone asks you, oh, hey, Annelise, like, how was your day today? How was my day today? My day was really good, thank you. I did, right? So that's a really easy way to actually break that awkward barrier while allowing yourself to think about what you're going to say while you're speaking. And when you have those fumblings or those ums or those ahs, or you lose your train of thought, take a second and understand, like, take a deep breath. It's okay that that's happened. You're not being recorded. There's no microphone thrust in your face, right? So we're not recording every move or every word that you say. We need to normalize the ums and ahs to an extent, and we need to normalize the fumbling and know that it is okay for fluency and for flow of speech, that if sometimes we lose our train of thought and sometimes we do have mental blanks, and it's having that positive dialogue with yourself and taking the pressure off yourself and understanding that that is okay. Because often the reason that we have the ums and ahs and the reason that we fumble and the reason that we don't form these coherent sentences is because we place an astronomical amount of pressure on ourselves before we speak. And by psyching ourselves out, we're unable to actually focus on the sentence at hand because our brain is full of, don't you dare stuff up. What if you say this? Don't say that. And you're focused on what's in here rather than focusing on what's coming out here. So it's about learning to step out of your head and starting to listen to your voice and using the techniques that Nia and I discussed before about how to practice speaking and seek out those opportunities to speak.
Thank you for that, Annelise. The next one is just too many eyes staring at me. And that was a popular one. That's definitely a popular answer.
I don't blame them. But one of the things that's really nerve-wracking when performing in front of people or speaking in front of people is the fact that everyone is looking at you, right? So the idea of I'm the center of attention and I don't want to be here. So one of the things that I encourage you to work on first is always primarily mindset. So switch that dialogue rather than I don't want to be the center of attention. I don't want everyone looking at me. Wow, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak today. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to actually share what I have to say with other people. So just having a really small mindset shift first to try and make that discomfort zone a comfort zone. And in terms of the eyes, obviously we can't ask people, all right, everyone close your eyes, I'm about to speak, right? That's not as realistic. So how do we actually get comfortable with that is one thing I always talk about with this relates to nerves and anxiety, that fear that we have before we speak, where our heart starts to beat a million miles an hour and we get really sweaty palms and we start to forget everything we're going to say. And it just becomes all so overwhelming and the eyes don't help, right? We need to slow down and regulate our central nervous system. And we do that through our breath and through our breathing. So if you're about to start speaking, or if you are speaking and you realize, well, maybe I'm speaking a million miles an hour and I'm starting to lose my train of thought, are you actually breathing? Are you allowing yourself the time to take deep breaths when you're speaking? Because if we're calming our central nervous system and we're focusing on breath and on centering ourselves rather than all the externals and the what ifs and the eyes, you're going to be able to feel a lot calmer and a lot more centered. Now, if it is the specific eyes that you're nervous about and actually eye contact with people, depends on the situation. If you're with a group of people physically, you can always look in the center of their forehead, right? So that's a way of not feeling intimidated by connecting with the eyes. If you're on stage, you look just above the audience. So for example, if you are my audience, I would look just above. and I'd be speaking to just above the audience. And that way I don't have to actually physically make eye contact with anybody. And this is for people that do feel intimidated by eye contact, right? These are baby steps to try and get yourself to feel comfortable with it. And then for things like on Zoom, one of the great ways that you don't actually have to look at people when you speak on a Zoom or on an Instagram Live or whatever it might be is you actually don't look at the screen as I am now, you look at the camera. Mm-hmm. There's no eyes at the camera. It's just a weird black dot, a lovely black dot, right? And I can't see, I mean, in my peripherals, I can see Nia, but I can't actually see Nia. So if it's their eyes or their expressions or their judgment that you're worried about, you have permission to actually look up at the camera, which is the most engaging way to speak to camera, and not actually look at the screen. So that's another thing I would say for the eyes comment, but I completely relate. I remember the reason I fainted was because of the eyes.
Moving forward to the next one was the person said, in my heart, I really want to do it, but I wouldn't say I'm shy. I just don't have enough faith. That one's pretty deep, huh?
This one really touches me because a lot of the women that I work with feel the exact same. They're incredibly capable, passionate, intelligent, driven women who know that if they put their mind to something, they can do it. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, when it comes to communicating and it comes to public speaking, the confidence just shatters. Mm-hmm. And they lose that faith and that belief in themselves to actually do it. So we're going to come back to what I mentioned before about the narrative that we're writing and the dialogue that we're using with ourselves. Have you got yourself on side? Are you actually building up your own faith and your own self-belief and your own confidence without external influence? Because if you don't feel on your own confident in your own voice, how can you expect to present as a confident speaker? And one of the ways that I love to teach confidence is, once again, cliche mirror, but reminding yourself through key sentences and lifting yourself up to push through that faith and to really develop your faith and grow your faith and fall in love with your voice and with yourself. So whether it be sentences like, you know, my relationship with my voice is growing. Mm-hmm. I'm really proud that I am courageous enough and brave enough to speak in front of others. My voice isn't perfect, but that's okay, because an imperfect voice is a beautiful voice, which is one of the phrases I say all the time and I strongly believe in. An imperfect voice is a beautiful voice. No such thing as a perfect voice. Mm-hmm. So I think the faith and the confidence, we have to first recognize that we have to remove the standards and the expectations, right? So don't compare yourself to someone's someone's day 50 or day 100 or what we spoke about before. So your day 1 is here and someone might be up here. You're comparing yourself to the wrong journey. Start with people that are on the same playing field as you and surround yourself with people that are going to support you on your journey, that are going to lift you up, make you feel good. Because those types of people that are really supportive in moments where you feel vulnerable or you feel really nervous are the types of people who are going to create positive speaking experiences for you and are going to make you feel less intimidated about speaking. And that's why I say, I mean, it's a shameless plug, but Clubhouse is an amazing app in that regard, because you have a lot of supportive people on the app who are supportive of newbies on the app and who want you to get up on stage and speak. So if you even don't join Clubhouse, finding those types of groups in real life, people that can help you grow your faith and your self-confidence, that push you towards becoming a confident speaker. And I want you to take a second to think about, who are the people that you're surrounding yourself with? Are they people that, like me growing up in school, they make fun of how you speak, or they put you down, or they don't make you feel valued or listened to in a conversation? Or are they people that really listen to and see you when you speak? And if you make a mistake or if you fumble, don't make fun of you, but just accept it, maybe laugh it off and move on. And I think when we start positioning ourselves in tribes and people and groups that support us on our journey, it's so much easier for our faith and our self-confidence to grow. So it starts here, internal, but then we can also help it grow externally with the people that we surround ourselves by. And I hope that that helps the person that asked the question, because I deeply resonate and I know how you feel, and it's hard. but you're doing good. You're doing so good.
Yes, thank you for that. I think the person will definitely appreciate that answer, Annelise. The last one is I lack confidence and fear slipping up, as well as thinking about what the audience has to say.
Mm. The funny thing is about that one, your audience doesn't care about you nearly as much as you think that they do. And that's a really abrupt fact, but it's really true. When we speak in front of people, we have all these what ifs, and we presume that they're going to judge, and they're going to be cruel, and they're going to be mean, and they're going to be picking up on every tiny thing. I just took a really long pause. They're going to think I'm a terrible speaker. We have all of this internal dialogue that happens, all of this fear that builds up, right? Because we perceive that our audience members are thinking all of these things. I guarantee you, hand over heart, $100 on the table, they don't. They do not think about you speaking nearly enough as you think that they do. Because when we speak, we are so in our head and we are so worried about what other people think. They're probably worried about what they're doing in the audience, or they're thinking about what's happening for lunch, or they just got a text message, or they're responding to an email, you know? So as much as we would love to have a highly attentive audience that takes in every word that we say, in reality, we're humans and our minds drift. And we're actually not as focused on you as a speaker nearly enough as you think that we are. So take comfort in the fact that your audience, while they are there to listen to you, and yes, I'm sure they deeply appreciate you and they do want to listen, they're not listening to the extent that you think that they are. So that tiny little slip up that you made, or that extra long pause that you took, nobody would have noticed. And one of the things I always ask the clients that I work with when they come to me and they say, oh, you know, I did so bad in this presentation and I spoke so terribly. I'm like, oh my goodness, who told you that? Oh, no, nobody told me that, but I feel so bad about it. And so what was people's feedback about the presentation? Like, what did people say? Oh, like they said that I did really well, but I just feel like So a lot of the dialogue that we actually create with ourselves and the fear and the anxieties that we have is just us overthinking and psyching ourselves out. And so that confidence starts to diminish because we start to value our inner criticism and our self-critiquing and our perfectionism higher than we are, all right, that might have not been perfect, but guess what? I'm going to listen to what Annelise said. An imperfect speaker is a beautiful speaker. And yes, there are always things to work on. And that's why coaches exist. And that's why workshops exist. And there are always classes that you can attend and opportunities you can seek to become a better speaker. But fundamentally, it starts with you, and it starts with that dialogue and that confidence. So getting yourself on your side, realizing your audience doesn't care nearly enough as you want them to, and just being kind to yourself and not setting such high expectations is what I would say to that question.
Thank you, Annelise. And I have one other question to just throw in there. So for those who have a burning message that they want to get out there, but they're not perfect at public speaking and they haven't had the most practice, what do you say for those persons?
Yeah, really, really great question. So I think the first thing to acknowledge is we are now all on social media, right? So every way that we communicate with people, that we get our message out there, is all done through primarily social media. So it might be Instagram, it might be Clubhouse, it might be Facebook, it might be Twitter, whatever it might be. We are social online creatures. So whenever I learn about a new company or a new movement, or I want to follow a new speaker, I've learned about them online, correct? So one way that we can actually start to get our message out there is actually creating a platform online. And it's one of, and Nia, you'd agree with me, it's one of the most intimidating things to do. And I'm going to be honest with you here, I'm going to be real with you. I'm a public speaking coach. And as Nia said, I've had 14 years experience and training, and then 5 years coaching experience. Now, I set up this business last year, my business last year during COVID, because I thought, you know, well, I'd been coaching for so many years, I might as well put a name to my business. Now, I had created my business and my name in May. I didn't actually start my business until November because I psyched myself out that much. And I was so scared about putting myself out there on a platform that is public. So I just want everyone that's listening or watching to realize that yes, I'm a coach, and yes, this is what I do for a living, and yes, this is what I teach, but I resonate and I empathize with the same struggles that you do. And in fact, I experience them myself. And one of the things that really went through my head last year when I was going through this huge imposter syndrome phase of, should I actually do this? And I don't know if I shouldn't, should I put myself out there? And what if I don't know the answer to this question? And what if people judge me for this? And what if people judge me for that? Really getting inside my head. I took myself back to the core, and Nia, this was the crux of the question. If you have a mission, if you have a passion, if you have a burning desire, something to help the world, something to help people, something to serve to others, we have to put ourselves on the side and realize our mission is too important to not be heard. My message is too powerful and is too important to actually allow my self-doubt and allow my imposter syndrome to block it from being heard. So for anybody wanting to get a message out there, I would say start an Instagram page. It's probably one of the easiest ways to do it. And just start with regular photo posting and get comfortable writing captions. So articulating yourself in a caption, writing sentences in a caption. Once you've done that for a while, I want you to use the technique I mentioned before about speaking to camera on your phone. And I want you to think of maybe one topic that you could speak about around your mission or around your passion. So with public speaking, it might be, we've spoken a lot about it today, mindset. So I might decide to set up my camera and just talk about mindset to my camera, okay? And once you've recorded that video, I want you to watch it back. And the first thing I want you to do is I want you to recognize how much you know and how much you can speak about. And that's why you got to get your message out there, because you know a lot, right? But from that, we're starting to then, like we mentioned before, seek opportunities to grow. You might then turn that video into a short 10-second story message where you think, okay, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and do a 10-second story message. Hi guys, my name is Annelise. This is my new platform and I'm speaking about blah, blah, blah. Whatever it might be. And actually, an amazing young woman that follows my Instagram sent me a message the other day saying, I made my first video story and it was terrifying, but it's done. And I got so many compliments for it. And this is the thing, you get yourself so worked up in your head, but more often than not, people love you for you and they will appreciate you for you and they will see your message and they will support you for being vulnerable. You know, vulnerability is rewarded. And if you're surrounding yourself with the right tribe and the right people, they will bring you up along the way, not lift you down. So get yourself an Instagram platform, experiment with photos first, because that's less intimidating, and writing captions. How do you feel being fluent in a sentence writing? Because that's a huge way to get comfortable with actually speaking. Once you've done that, then maybe experiment with setting up your camera, recording a video. How did you feel speaking to camera? Are we then going to take the next step and maybe record a story? After a story, are we going to then post a video? It's all baby steps. So don't think of the big picture and don't overwhelm yourself with the, oh my gosh, I need to have a platform that I need to speak on all the time and I need to host lives and I need to be on TikTok, I need to be on all these platforms. No, baby steps. We're starting at the very beginning, like I did, right? Like Nia did as well, like we all do. We start at day one and then we build and we build and we build. And the slower the journey is for you, the easier it will be because you're going to slowly make that discomfort zone a comfort zone. So use the tips that we discussed today and use those techniques to practice and to get experience speaking and to seek opportunities to speak and allow that mission to be heard because we got to hear it and you got to let it out there.
Yes, I always like to say, and I heard it from someone else, is that I may not necessarily know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. It's like just one day or day one, just do it.
So good. It's that whole idea of fake it till you make it, you know, act confident and no one will question you. Just put it out there, know that it's for the right reason, know that it's serving you and see how it goes. And there's an amazing saying, there's a voice and presentation coach, Sally Prosser, she's in Brisbane in Australia. And she has an amazing quote that she once told me and I love it. And she says, you could be the shiniest, juiciest, most gorgeous ripe apple in a box. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, not everybody likes apples. And it's accepting that not everybody will identify with you or your mission, but the right people will. And at the end of the day, those are the people that you want to attract to your brand and you want to keep. So don't worry too much about what everybody else is saying, what everybody else is thinking. We're attracting the right people to our brand. Your vibe attracts your tribe. The vibe you put out there will attract your unique tribe. But when's day one? That's what you need to decide. Is it going to be day one or one day? So maybe today, when you've listened to this and you've listened to Nia and you've listened to me speak and you have that mission or you have that project, that passion project that you want to start, is today day one? Are you going to make this the day where you just start an account and you put it out there? And if you do, guess who you're going to tag? You're going to tag up to, right? And we're going to support you on that journey, because that's what people do. You support each other along the way. You don't drag each other down.
And if you try to wait until you're perfect, you may never start.
Take it from me. May, I started my business. May, I owned my name. I actually didn't post anything on social media until November, because I psyched myself out that much. Now, technically, my brand might be a lot bigger if I'd started in May. Right? I might have helped a lot more women and reached a lot more people, but I didn't, because I was too fearful about what other people would say about me, what other people would think. And this is coming from a speaking coach. This is coming from someone who's confident on camera, who's confident speaking, right? So you can only imagine, if this is coming from me, then this is something we all experience. It's not just you. We all experience this. So understand that you are being courageous, you are being vulnerable, you are being brave, but we're deciding today when is day one, and then you need to take action on it, and we will support you along the way.
Thank you, Annelise. Thank you so much for all these helpful tips. And the last thing I will mention, I'll just briefly talk about the importance of investing in your public speaking training. Warren Buffett talked about his most valuable investment that he ever made was in his public speaking training that he did with Dale Carnegie. And to this day, he hangs his certificate in his office. So being able to get some type of formal training in public speaking will always serve you well, no matter what it is that you do as it relates to your career. You'll always, as Annelise mentioned earlier, almost every interaction you have and every time you speak to someone, it is public speaking. It's not just on a stage. And so thanks for clearing that up, Annelise.
Nia, I love everything you're about, and I love you so much. And I think, what you mentioned before is so true and so important. And this is why people like us exist, because, I've done the fainting on stage, so you don't have to. That's why I'm here. I've done the hard yards so that you don't have to. And that's why it's amazing to actually join coaching programs and to get speaking training, and like what Nia said, the merit in actually investing in public speaking, because you're not only taking someone that can give you tips to help you along the way, but you're taking someone's experience, their failures, and all of their learnings along their journey as well. So you're getting not only tips to help you speak, but you're getting a whole abundance of knowledge and experience from a coach, whether it be me or someone else. All coaches, what Nia does, we all have experience and opportunities that have helped shape us as people to serve others. So it's not surface level, it's a whole iceberg, not just the tip, it's the whole underneath as well of everything that you're getting from investing in public speaking. So definitely, if you're someone that could see the merit in it and you're someone that would like to start, I would highly recommend doing so.
And if you are interested, you can feel free to reach out to Annelise for investing in her public speaking coaching. Annelise, where can my viewers and listeners find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Her Speaking Coach, and then you can also find me online at www.annelisemccarthy.com, and there you can find how to contact me, and we can have a chat, and we can have a tea together, and we can start this beautiful, non-intimidating journey to help you become a confident speaker.
And I can second that. It won't be non-intimidating. Annelise has such an amazing personality. Feel free to reach out to her. And again, Annelise, thank you so much for sharing all these tips here today. I do hope that we were able to help someone kick the fear out of their public speaking phobia. And again, thank you to all my listeners. As it's so much different now that we're on podcasting platforms. Again, thank you to all my viewers who have tuned into this YouTube video today as well. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with anyone you believe will benefit from this video, whether it's your friend or family. And then I'll see you in the next episode, and please take care.